Sigma males are often referred to as society's lone wolves. They don't seek out the spotlight like alpha males, nor do they blend quietly into the background like betas. Instead, they walk an entirely different path, one of independence, self-reliance, and an uncanny resistance to social pressure. They aren't interested in climbing existing hierarchies. They prefer to exist outside of them, charting their own course and refusing to be defined by others' expectations. When a Sigma male is healthy and self-aware, these traits can be powerful assets. Such a man builds a life rooted in quiet strength, making choices based on internal values rather than external validation. However, when that same Sigma personality turns dark, those very strengths can twist into dangerous tools. The qualities that once made him admirable, his detachment, logic, and independence, become weapons. Unlike the stereotypical alpha, who often asserts dominance through noise, ego, and confrontation, the toxic Sigma dominates through silence, calculation, and subtlety. He doesn't need to raise his voice or flex his status. Instead, he moves with cold precision, often causing immense damage without ever being seen as a source. In fact, there are several ways a toxic Sigma male can inflict harm more effectively than any loud, aggressive alpha could dream of. Here are just a few. 1. They make coldly logical decisions without remorse. When a dark Sigma is betrayed, disrespected, or challenged, he doesn't lash out emotionally. He doesn't yell, threaten, or seek dramatic confrontation. Instead, he flips an internal switch, turning off his emotions and viewing the situation like a strategist. To him, everything becomes a series of decisions, calculated and detached, with each move evaluated like numbers on a balance sheet. Loyalty, relationships, and empathy become irrelevant if they interfere with efficiency or desired outcomes. If someone proves useful to his goals, they remain. But if removing them secures an advantage, he won't hesitate. The decision is made swiftly and silently. There's no guilt, no second thoughts, just action. Take, for instance, a project manager who discovers that a teammate made an honest mistake, which could delay a deadline. A traditional leader might offer feedback, coaching, or try to compromise. But a toxic Sigma? He simply replaces the teammate overnight. No warning, no discussion. To him, it was a simple solution guided by logic, not emotion. To those on the outside, this may come across as heartless or even cruel. But to the Sigma, it's just smart strategy. This lack of emotional restraint makes him particularly dangerous. He can cross moral boundaries without hesitation, because he never saw those boundaries as real in the first place. 2. Masters of psychological warfare. Whereas an aggressive bully might try to dominate through loud threats and physical presence, a toxic Sigma prefers a quieter, more insidious form of control: psychological warfare. He doesn't raise his voice, he studies. People are puzzles to him, and he learns their patterns like blueprints. He observes who needs approval to feel secure, who flinches when a certain topic is brought up, and who fears being outshined by others. Once he's identified someone's weak point, he strikes with surgical precision. One subtle sentence, well-timed and perfectly worded, can trigger a storm of self-doubt in the victim, unraveling their confidence from the inside out. For example, imagine a rival preparing for a major presentation. At just the right moment, the Sigma might lean in and say, "Are you sure you got the skills to lead this?" It's not an overt attack, just a question, but it plants a seed of uncertainty that can undo weeks of preparation. What makes it especially cruel is that the victim often doesn't recognize the manipulation. They blame themselves for their shaken confidence, never realizing the sabotage was intentional. And by the time they start to suspect something is off, the damage has already taken root. Like ivy creeping through cracks in their self-esteem, slowly choking out their belief in themselves. 3. Invisible information gathering. To the dark Sigma male, information is power, and he collects it not with force or interrogation, but with subtlety and patience. Like a spy in plain sight, he draws people in with curiosity and calm, never pressing too hard or making others feel threatened. His method is disarmingly simple. He listens. His questions seem supportive, even caring. He might ask, "What keeps you up at night about this project?" Or, "Who do you trust most with sensitive tasks?" These don't sound like traps. In fact, they sound like the kind of thoughtful questions a good leader or friend might ask. That's the brilliance of his technique. People respond willingly, lowering their guard and revealing personal insights, fears, and loyalties without realizing they're arming him with ammunition. While the conversation feels casual, he's mapping every answer, storing away emotional vulnerabilities and relational dynamics for future use. Even more than the spoken word, he pays close attention to micro-reactions, a momentary hesitation before answering, a flicker of discomfort, or a tense jaw when a certain colleague is mentioned. Each detail becomes a data point. Months may pass. Everything may seem calm, but when the Sigma needs to assert control or dismantle resistance, he retrieves that precise, forgotten piece of information, a buried fear, a hidden insecurity, and he uses it with surgical timing to force compliance or shatter defenses. The most chilling part? Because the information was given freely, no one suspects manipulation until it's far too late. 4. Dangerously patient, waiting years for payback. Where most people react emotionally and impulsively when wronged, a dark Sigma male does something far more unsettling. He waits. He doesn't explode in anger or seek immediate revenge. Instead, he stores the offense in the quiet vault of his memory, smiles politely, and shakes hands as if all is forgiven, but internally, he's already planning. This patience is what makes him so dangerous. He can wait months or even years before striking, because for him, timing is everything. During that waiting period, he gathers intelligence, quietly studying his target's ambitions, stress points, and weaknesses. He learns what they care about most, where they're most exposed, and how best to deliver a blow that will hurt not just emotionally, but strategically. When the time is right, the Sigma acts. He may withhold a key piece of information just before a critical deadline, allowing the target to fail publicly. Or he might reveal a long-buried secret right before an important promotion, destroying credibility with a single sentence. The target is left blindsided. Because they believe the past was forgotten, they assumed time had healed the wound. But the Sigma was simply waiting, biding his time for a moment that would cause maximum impact. This level of delayed, calculated revenge is terrifyingly effective. While others waste energy lashing out in the moment, the Sigma conserves his, waiting for that one devastating move that leaves no chance for recovery. 5. Profound self-awareness, ruthless blind spot exploitation. One of the most dangerous traits of a dark Sigma male is his profound self-awareness, paired with his ability to identify and exploit the blind spots of others. While most people walk through life unaware of their own psychological weak points, the Sigma makes it his mission to understand his inner world, and yours. He dissects people the way a surgeon examines a body, finding the exact places where they are most vulnerable. These blind spots may be subtle: a fear of failure, an unspoken craving for approval, or a deep need to be seen as competent. Once identified, he maneuvers situations to press directly on those pressure points, without ever appearing to be the cause. Take, for example, a colleague who has an unspoken fear of appearing incompetent. The Sigma doesn't criticize them outright. Instead, he assigns them tasks just complex enough to provoke anxiety, then plants small seeds of doubt in front of leadership. Are you sure this is the right person for this kind of task? He never makes direct accusations, just enough implication to make the person unravel on their own. Under pressure, the colleague begins to panic. Their performance suffers. They make mistakes, and slowly they implode, all while the Sigma stands back untouched, seemingly uninvolved. The genius of this strategy lies in its invisibility. Because the attack targets a weakness the victim barely acknowledges within themselves, they can't trace their unraveling back to the Sigma. They simply believe they've failed, never realizing they were expertly set up to fall. 6. Silence as a weapon, amplifying insecurity and paranoia. In a world where people instinctively defend themselves when challenged or insulted, the dark Sigma male takes a radically different approach. He says nothing. He doesn't argue, explain, or react. His silence, cold and unshakable, becomes his most powerful weapon. This response, or lack of one, can destabilize even the most confident aggressors. Why does it work so well? Because it creates a vacuum, and the human mind hates a vacuum. The attacker, expecting resistance or at least a retort, instead faces a wall of indifference. Doubt creeps in. Did I go too far? What is he thinking? The silence stretches, thickening the air with tension. Colleagues, bystanders, and even those close to the Sigma start to feel it. The absence of a reaction becomes more unsettling than any outburst could be. Over time, this silence has a corrosive effect. In professional settings, co-workers begin to tiptoe around him, granting him a quiet kind of authority, simply because no one wants to provoke the unknown. In relationships, partners may grow anxious, obsessing over what he's thinking, replaying conversations in their heads, and questioning their own perceptions. His silence turns their imagination against them, letting their insecurities spiral out of control. It's psychological warfare at its most elegant. He doesn't have to lift a finger, because the victim's own mind does all the damage. 7. Persuasion that strikes only when it matters. Sigma males are known for their quiet nature. They don't speak to fill silence or to assert dominance. This reserved communication style means that when a Sigma does speak, especially in critical moments, people pay close attention. A manipulative Sigma leverages this dynamic to great effect. In high-stakes situations, such as key decision-making moments, he waits patiently, letting others debate and clash. Then, when the moment is right, he delivers a short, calculated statement, backed by data, sharpened by logic, and free of emotional baggage. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's devastatingly effective. In just one sentence, he can reshape the direction of a meeting, sway a team vote, or dismantle a rival's credibility. Because his words are measured and rare, people take them seriously. They carry weight. They don't invite emotional rebuttal or easy dismissal. Once spoken, his position often becomes the center of gravity in the room, shifting alliances and redirecting plans without resistance. And the effect lingers. Long after the meeting ends, people remember what he said. His minimal but impactful contributions give him a silent influence that echoes through decisions, shaping outcomes with surgical precision. 8. Silent revenge that leaves no trace. When a dark Sigma male decides to exact revenge, he does so with chilling subtlety. Unlike emotional aggressors who lash out publicly or loudly, the Sigma prefers to destroy from the shadows. His vengeance doesn't look like revenge. It looks like coincidence. His methods are quiet and strategic. A rumor, seemingly birthed from nowhere, begins to circulate and chip away at someone's reputation. Trusted allies of the victim suddenly become distant, having a private, carefully worded conversations with the Sigma. Then, at just the right moment, a confidential mistake or personal detail is exposed, demolishing the victim's credibility. But the Sigma? He's nowhere to be seen when the fallout begins. What makes this terrifying is the lack of any clear connection. No fingerprints, no outbursts, no trace. The victim, confused and destabilized, starts to revisit old conversations, hunting for signs, for slips, for anything that might reveal the source. But they find nothing, and by the time they realize the full extent of the damage, the Sigma has already receded into the background, silent, composed, and completely untouchable. His revenge doesn't leave scars. It leaves echoes, confusion, paranoia, and reputations quietly crumbling, all while he remains calm in the shadows, watching it unfold with cold detachment. Final warning, the Dark Sigma is always several moves ahead. The most dangerous Sigma males don't need to make threats. They don't seek attention, broadcast their plans, or engage in open confrontation. Instead, they operate from the shadows, calm, calculating, and always thinking several steps ahead. What makes them truly lethal isn't brute force or loud displays of dominance, but the quiet, methodical way they anticipate and control outcomes before anyone even realizes a game is being played. A Dark Sigma's independence is his shield. Because he doesn't rely on approval, status, or group validation, people often underestimate him. He doesn't compete for power in the usual way, which means he rarely arouses suspicion. Meanwhile, his sharp intellect works like a grandmaster's mind on a chessboard, mapping every possible move, predicting responses, and planning contingencies in silence. And perhaps most chilling of all is his patience. He never rushes. He watches, waits, and times his actions with chilling precision. When he finally strikes, whether in the boardroom, in personal relationships, or social dynamics, it's not impulsive. It's orchestrated. By the time you even suspect he's taken aim, he's already calculated your likely reactions, set traps to neutralize them, and ensure that whatever fallout follows won't be traced back to him. This is the ultimate strength of the Dark Sigma. He doesn't just play the game better. He silently rewrites the rules to favor him without anyone noticing. While others are busy trying to win, he's reshaped the entire battlefield. And by the time you realize what's happened, you've already lost. Do you resonate with the ideas I shared in this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in more content about Sigma males, explore the other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching.